Hi, I'm Nora Melley, the Education Manager for the Delaware Center for Horticulture. You may have received one of our planting kits that we've designed in conjunction with PHS Harvest to fight food insecurity in our region. If you're doing this on your own, you're going to need a large planting pot with holes in the bottom and some soil. The soil we have here is really nice and fluffy, so you want to make sure you fill it all the way to the top because it will contract a bit as you water it. Make sure you have all of your soil in here filled up to the top. You have two types of seeds. Your packets are going to look a little different than mine, but we've got some Tokyo style turnips, also known as Haikuri turnips, and some kale. This specific kale is Red Russian, but you may have a different variety. They're both planted the same. Both of these plants are in the Brassica family, which means that they're related to broccoli, and they're very, very healthy for you, and they have very similar and very small seeds. You have two choices about how you set up your pot. The first choice is if you're putting this against a wall, and then you're going to put the kale in the back with the turnips in the front. If you're planting this and it's going to be out in the middle of a patio, it's going to be away from a wall or away from anything that's going to shade it, you can put your kale in the center and your turnips in a ring around it. This is because the kale is going to get much taller. The kale is going to get about 2.5, maybe even 3 feet. The turnips are only about 6 to 12 inches. So we want the kale away from the turnips so that it's not shading it. If you're doing this on your own and you don't have these specific seeds, please read your seed packet to know how to plant these. So these seeds, these are the turnips. Each seed is going to make one turnip. The kale, each seed will make one kale plant, which you can pick multiple leaves from. The Tokyo style or Haikuri turnips are a salad type of turnip. So they're edible raw, they're very good. They get to about to the size of a radish, but you can also cook them, as you can see in one of our other videos on cooking Haikuri turnips. So in order to plant these, we're going to sprinkle lightly. I'm going to do this pretending that we're putting it up against a wall. So I'm going to do a ring in the front. I'm going to sort of press it in and smooth it over. It's very, very simple. You can plant these Haikuris a little bit more thickly than their final density because you can thin them out. If they're too close together, you pull out the extras, and you can actually eat those greens. So you can cook them or add them, if they're young enough, you can add them to salads when they're still tender. So sprinkling them around is fine as long as you are going to be okay going back in and thinning out some of them to give them space for that root to grow. The kale we're going to plant a little bit more carefully. You may also need to thin this, but because you never have 100% germination, so you do want to plant a few more than you need, but you should not have to thin it quite as much as the turnips if you plant them a little bit farther apart. So I'm going to plant 2 seeds at a time, and I'm just going to make a very little divot and cover it up. These are the same size, but I'm going to be a little bit more deliberate in where I place these, and I'm just making sort of a triangle here in the back. But remember that if you are planting this and you're going to put it out in the middle of your property, you want the kale in the center, turnips around. What I did was I made a triangle here of the kale, and I put the turnips around the outside here, and that's because this is going to sit up against a wall. That's the planting process. It's very, very easy. Again, if you are not using the same seeds as we are, make sure you read the seed packet. It'll tell you your planting depth and your planting distance for whatever you're choosing to plant. This needs to get watered in very, very well. You don't just go over it with a hose for 10 seconds. You need to really let it soak in, but gently. You don't want to wash the seeds away from where you planted them. As this grows, you're going to keep watering it every day or two, depending on the weather. These are geared towards fall or early spring plantings. So planting this late in the summer to harvest into the fall is great, or planting in March or April for harvesting later in the spring is also a good use for this. Either way, you can use the pot the rest of the season for other crops. Both of these crops are cool season plants, so they don't like the heat of the summer. The turnips you'll harvest as soon as that root looks about the size of a radish. And after you pull it out, you can actually replant some more if you still have some seeds left. For your kale, you can harvest the leaves whenever they look good. You can start pulling them off the stalk. To recap, start with a large pot that has drainage holes on the bottom. Fill it all the way to the top with some loose soil that is geared towards containers. Check your seed packet. Make sure you're planting at the correct depth and distance apart. Make sure you water it well. Thin your turnips if necessary, and you'll be good to go. If you have any questions, please visit our Facebook page or our website, thedch.org, and we'll be happy to answer them. Happy planting.